I have brought some clothes on stage with me. This is a pair of exercise pants, and they lied to me in the tag because they said one size fits all. Now, I was a lot of pounds heavier many years ago, and I can tell you right now, do you think if Rocky tried on these pants that they would fit him? One size does not fit all. And I have a pair of jeans that I brought with me. Do you know I had a favorite pair of jeans in high school? I was 16 years old. That's 34 years ago. And I am also 50 this year, but do not look for me to put on these pants and do 50 push-ups like Dan did a little bit earlier. And about 4 years ago, I had kept those jeans because I just loved them. And I worked so hard, I was able to get back into those jeans I had 34 years ago, and I still have them. And let's relate this to communication. Why do we think one size fits all with communication? Because it doesn't. And just to bring some examples about the way we say something to someone can either encourage them and make them want to do something, or it can do exactly the opposite, and they want to dig their heels in and do exactly the opposite of what you want them to do. I go into a bathroom at sites, just like you do, and do you ever notice on the walls, sometimes there is a sign and it says, "You must wash your hands." And I think if I didn't know the germs it would cause, I wouldn't be washing my hands because they told me I had to wash my hands. But I was in an international association building several months ago, and in the bathroom it said, "Scrubby-dub-dub, don't get a bug," and it had listed all of the viruses and germs you could get. And what do you think I was doing the whole time I was reading that sign? I was washing my hands. I was doing exactly what they wanted me to do. Now, I am in hotels many nights during the year, and I guess people steal stuff in hotels, I don't know. But there was a sign recently, and this is what the sign said. "Some of our items have become so popular, we are now offering them for purchase. Our bathrobes are this amount of money. Our bath towels are this amount of money," etc. And if you would like to purchase any of these, please feel free to stop by the front desk and we will provide one of those items to you. Or if you don't have time and your schedule is so rushed, please feel free to take it from the room and we'll just charge your bill. In other words, you steal it, you're going to pay for it. But the way it is said makes a difference. This hit home to me again in high school. I did grow up in a very poor family. A wonderful family. My dad graduated from the 8th grade. No one in my family had ever been to college before. I was the first one. So no one in my family had ever been to college before. And you know what? My grammar was terrible. And a teacher in high school taught because she loved it. She was very wealthy. The governor's wife was her best friend, but she had a passion for teaching and making a difference in students' lives. And she pulled me aside one day and she said, "Patsy, sometimes when I hear you talking, I think if you had just said that a little bit differently, it would have been even more effective. Would you be open once in a while if I pulled you to the side, and I would never do this in front of anyone, and give you a suggestion for how you might have said it for it to be even more effective?" And I said, yes, I was a sponge. Do you know what she was really saying? Your grammar stinks. And if you don't change it, you will not get as far in life. Because of the way she said it, I was a sponge. And she changed my life. So one way with the communication is we have to think about the way we say it and choose our words very, very carefully. But as important as the word choice is, that's only 7% of the communication. Did you know 93% of the communication is everything else? And I just talked about how powerful that 7% can be. But the 93% is then how we say it. Dr. Tony Alessandra uses an example. I'm going to ask you to participate, so if you've fallen asleep, wake back up for just a moment, okay? If I ask you to say the word O, O-H, like you have an understanding about something, how would you say the word O? Oh. How about you don't believe me? How about you're confused about something? Okay, you will all get the next one. There is some good, juicy gossip going on about something. Oh. Now, we just said 4 things, but we said one word, didn't we? Folks, think about the use of email in your organizations. We can start World War III with email. Because in email, O comes across as O. And however I feel about you, I will interpret that email one way. Or if I've had a bad day, I might interpret that email differently. So we do need to be more cautious. I have a client who used to be with Disney. He has his own company now. And he says he has 2 rules with email that he put into place. You cannot send an email in his organization unless it starts with one of these 2 things, based upon our conversation or in a tone of please. And he said it has increased communication in a huge way. Now, sometimes when you communicate with a person, you think, I've communicated it. I either sent it in a memo, sent it in an email, or I told them, why are they not doing what I asked them to do? Disney did a study with their board of directors, and the study showed that some items of information they had to communicate with their board of directors as much as 5 to 6 times. And I'm assuming that's a pretty intelligent group of people. So just because we communicate it once doesn't mean that it has been received by the other party. I'm on an airplane just about every night of my life, usually 2 flights a night, because very rarely are there those direct flights. I will take Southwest out of this because we know how creative they are. Once on Delta and once on American, the flight attendant was so creative in the manner in which they talked about the safety instructions, they got everybody's attention. Do you know when I get on a plane most of the time now, I don't think they go over the safety instructions because I don't hear them anymore, because I hear it hundreds of times a year and I shut them out. Recently, I was on an airplane with a woman my age, also about 50, and it was the first airplane flight of her life. When they went over the safety instructions, I watched her, and this lady was on the edge of her seat. She was going to make sure she did not miss a thing. She was tugging on that cushion to make sure going over Arizona it was going to float for her if she needed it to float. And I looked at her and I thought, wait a minute. Statistically, who's going down first, her or me? Me. Hundreds of flights a year, 1 in her life. But who's not listening anymore? Because I hear it the same way. Do you communicate sometimes something with people around you 150 times and they still don't get it? It's because perhaps it's being done the same way and they're not listening, hearing it, seeing it anymore. One of the flights I was on, where one of the attendants was so creative, his name was Bingo on his birth certificate. Everybody in the cabin listened when he talked about the safety instructions. And I went up to Bingo afterwards and I said, I would like to get you on tape sometime. That was so creative that you engaged everyone and got them to listen. Isn't that the goal? We're talking about your life and your safety. Side note, I said, I got to ask you, how did you get your name Bingo? He said, my mom and daddy had 7 girls, and they finally got him a boy, and they said, Bingo. And that was very much like his personality. But he was so creative. And then after that, I watched another attendant. He picked up the safety instruction card, he picked up the intercom, and he had done it hundreds of times. And he went through that information just flying. Brrr. He put the card down, he put the intercom down like, I have done my job. And I thought, no, you haven't. You said it, but there was a very low percentage on this plane who listened to you. Even though we have communicated, we have not communicated. It's not just sending the message. It has been communicated when the message we are sending has also been received by the party we're sending the message to. So we do need to step out and say, one size is not going to fit all. And I need to think about how I need to deliver this message to the person that needs to hear the message. Motivate. I'm going to talk about my mama. Now, I don't know what you call her in Chicago, but in the South we call her Mama. And 4 years ago, my brothers and I decided to get my mother a computer for Christmas. My mother enjoys technology so much, it took us years to get her to use a microwave. So let me just set the stage for this. When we gave her her computer for Christmas, she let us know that we had wasted every dime we had spent on that computer. Now, I knew how much my mother would enjoy it if I could just get her into it. My mother loves jokes. She has a 3-ring binder with jokes and the punchlines in it. So this is what I said to my mother. I said, Mama, if you will work with me on this and learn it, I will teach you. And if you will work with me, I will send you a joke every day on email, something called email. And she said, she got out her pencil and paper and she said, okay, let's start. and she wanted to learn. She called me for a week with different questions. I have now created a monster, I would like you to know. I got 92 jokes last Thursday night from my mother on email. So my email maxes out because of all the jokes I'm getting from my mother. She liked it so much. Do you know what she asked for a year ago Christmas? A laptop, so she can take it on the road with her. But I had to find a way to motivate her, and she loves it. She did call me the other day. She said, I am so frustrated, I could just throw these things out the window. She said, my big one broke, and I'm having to use my little one. And she said, the keyboard's not working, it just types asterisks every time I hit a key. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I said, Mom, I'll stop by there on my way to the airport. I stopped by. Do you know if you're in your password, you hit a key and it just gives you the asterisks? That's what was going on. But she loves her computer. So can you find a way to motivate the person you're communicating with? 2 more things before I close. A number of years ago, we are in the presidential campaign right now. A number of years ago, a man by the name of Ross Perot ran for president. And I had an opportunity to work for his company for a number of years and had an opportunity to spend time with him on a number of occasions. If you will recall, when he ran for president, he used a flip chart in some of the debates. This was the one man running in the campaign who had the highest level of technology available to him. But he chose to use the method that would get his point across. And that's what we need to make sure of. And while I'm talking about the White House, I will close with this story. We need to communicate what we want and not hold it inside, because we're missing things in life. I had a friend by the name of Muriel Alper, and if you can think in your mind about Nancy Reagan and her look, Muriel was in her late 70s and had the look of Nancy Reagan. She was classy dressed. She worked for Hillary Clinton in the White House. I was living in Hawaii at the time, and she said, when you come to Washington, I was coming back and forth about every month, she said, stop by the White House, and I'll take you in some of those areas where the regular tourists don't get to go. I said, okay. And Muriel was just a hoot. And I said, Muriel, how did you come to work for the office of the First Lady? And she said, I volunteered when they started the administration, and they put all of us old fogies in the dungeon to have us answer correspondence. And she said, that's not where I had intended on spending my time as a volunteer. So she flipped over her security badge like it had accidentally flipped over. She went on a walk in the executive offices of the White House, and she said, then she saw it. It said Office of the First Lady. And she decided, that's where I want to work. She walked in and she said things were in disarray. There were papers everywhere. They were just starting. And she said, could you use some assistance in here? And they said, yes. She said she marched down to the basement. She said, I have been requested to work in the office of the First Lady. And she worked there for a number of years. I did fly back into Washington a few years later to attend Muriel's funeral. We didn't know who was going to be speaking, but it was packed. And do you know, we saw Secret Service come up the aisles. The person who did her eulogy was Hillary Clinton. This is not about Hillary Clinton, it's about Muriel Alper. She made such a difference that probably the busiest lady in the nation spoke at her eulogy. And this is what she said. She had us laughing. When I was at the White House, I was single at the time, and Muriel said, that man's a lawyer, he's rich, he's powerful. You want to meet him? I'll introduce you to him. And Hillary said that there were single doctors calling her staff saying, Muriel's making me call you. She thinks we would make a good match and I'm supposed to take you out to dinner. We laughed and laughed at the eulogy because that's the way Muriel was. In her 70s, she communicated and went after something she wanted. In all of our businesses, no matter how good our processes are, our business will not succeed at the level it should without effective communication. And I hope we all stay aware of that. So let's think about it in business, but don't forget it in your personal life. Go after what you want. Have a wonderful afternoon.